Hey everyone, it's Will, Gamer Dad, with another video for you. So today's video we're going to show off the farming results over the last 6 weeks. I do apologize that I have been a little bit delayed in putting these out. Usually I put them out every 4 or 5 weeks, but however this week we did have a lot of interesting and awesome news coming out of both Japan as well as the global live stream. If you haven't already, make sure you do catch the official Nether Eden global channel. They do have some information on the live stream, and there is a big collab happening as of, I would say, about 48 hours from now. So looking forward to that. Hopefully I can do a live stream when the update comes down. However, our weather on the Monday is going to be a little bit rough, so we'll have to see how that goes. Now, on another note, in this video, I kind of wanted to share my thoughts about the farming challenges of the different players, either from early game, mid game, and end game. And the reason why I want to discuss that is, of course, for some of you, you might be actually new not only to this channel, but to Another Eden Global in general. And if you are, I welcome you to the game. Hopefully you do enjoy the game as much as I do. There's a very great community, a friendly community, either on the Another Eden subreddit, or if you decide to go to the Another Eden Discord, there are a lot of people there as well. Now that being said, this video is definitely not, and I do put them out regularly, it's not to brag about the drops I get or kind of how I progress through the game. It's more of an indication of what can be achieved if you decide to put in a little bit of time and do, for Another Eden, the daily tasks that we have to do. And what I mean by that is, as you all know, once you get through chapter 13 and eventually chapter 26 of the main story, you do get access to the Another dungeon, and you do get red and green keys. You get 4 a day, 1 refresh every 6 hours. And if you use those keys wisely, because they are rechargeable, however, there is a cap of how many you can store, you're able to actually use this method to really enhance your game. And what I mean by that is that obviously the veterans and those who have been playing for a while know this, but this is the way that you can keep up with the game without having to spend any money or spend even a lot of stones, even if you have some access to some money and you want to add a little bit to the game. The grinding system is really important to progress. And so without any further ado, I'll just discuss briefly my thoughts about the different challenges from beginning to end. So for you new players or relatively new players less than a year, I think the main challenge is to get to the reward levels to unlock the maximum rewards. Now you can see in some of my dungeons there are 3 reward lines at the end, there are 5 reward lines in other ones. And so depending on how far you are in the main story, you will have access to the first kind of dungeons, which is 3 reward lines. To get all 3, you do need 120 light or shadow divided over your team. And so, unless you're spending a lot of money early in the game, my advice to you all would be that you have to definitely choose a character or characters to concentrate grinding out that light. And what that means is bringing in the featured character to a certain dungeon, having a 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 chance depending on which keys you run, and increasing the light that way through RNG and a grind system. My current thoughts is that it's still great for a newer player to still concentrate on Aldo, which is the main character. You can grind out his light in Miglis Castle hard or very hard. And in terms of a shadow unit, I think the easiest access is through the Mythos system, where you can get Clark, which is a shadow character, as opposed to Aldo being a light character. His dungeons are all over the Mythos. There's quite a few other ones, so I won't really discuss that very further. Now, not only is it a challenge to get to 120 light and 120 shadow, the problem is that a lot of times the materials you'll need, that is, the minimum is usually 90 murmur scripts, 30 prayer scripts, and 5 chant scripts, not to mention any additional rare materials such as 5 treatises, 3 opuses, and or 5 codexes. Those are extremely hard to get, especially if you're in the first year. And most of the reason for that is that you may not have access to all the different dungeons out there, and more importantly, you don't have all the reward lines. Think of it this way. If you run a dungeon and you only have 2 2 reward lines versus me having 3. That is, you don't have 120 light or 120 shadow. I'm getting 50% more drops than you, right? You get 2 lines, I have 3 over 2, 1.5 times, and that multiplies daily, weekly, and monthly. So the priorities, if you're new to the game, is certainly to get a team to 120, and given the fact that there is some power creep out there, as long as you have 1 or 2 really strong characters that can do AoE attacks that can wipe out the enemy party, and then just spam the AF bar on the boss, most of the time you can get through it without any serious damage, especially since I remember when I was first in the game running through Chapter 26 dungeons. Man, it was tough. Having the original Suzette, no manifest, no true manifest, no nothing, the mod damage on that is only like 150, 160% or even less. And so I needed 2 characters with AoE capabilities in order to clear even the weaker mobs in some of those very hard dungeons. Nowadays, I mean, you pull any one gacha that's a 5-star out of the bat, and you're probably getting an 800 mod, 1000 mod, if not something like Flam that gives you 3000 mod. Those are auto wins and should really make it easy for you to grind out those keys, especially the red ones, which are definitely more important of the 2. The red ones are the only ones that can get the opuses, which are really important in side grading or upgrading those precious altar units, and you've probably seen me use a couple of those in action, Altar Xion being one of the more notable ones, but certainly you know, Altar Tuva, Altar Suzette, and so on and so forth. So if you are new to the game, don't worry, the grind will get easier, and more importantly, you shouldn't feel that it's impossible to get all the characters in terms of the ones you want upgraded. The materials will definitely come as long as you run those keys. So again, for early game players, the materials are probably the one that is really holding you back, especially the chant scripts and of course the codexes, treatises, and opuses, and so on and so forth. Now, once you're in the mid-game and early end-game, I lump you guys all together because you've probably, at this point, I would say you've probably finished the main story, you have access to all the dungeons out there, you've probably tackled a few of the side episodes, if not more, and you're really just prioritizing where you want to run or your red and green keys. In that case, you're probably running things like your green keys are going to either Guerrilla or Underworld dungeons, which are affiliated with the main story, and your red keys are kind of in a priority of either grinding out the light or shadow for certain units, or just progressing through the game, because obviously some of the side episodes and Apocrypha, Mythos, so on and so forth, they do require red keys in order to grind out points which unlock rewards and other things. Your struggles are very similar to the players who are in the first year of play, in that you are still bottlenecked by materials. However, I would argue that more likely you are bottlenecked by chant scripts and not so much in terms of the treatises, opuses, and codexes. And the reason why I say that is a lot of times when you're building up in the first year, 2 or more, it's that you have enough 4.5 characters that can be upgraded to 5 stars. It's just that you have so many of them and you haven't really played the game long enough, because you started the game later, that you don't have the opportunity to have grinded out all those chant scripts, right? And so I would say that certainly in years 2 and 3, or somewhere in the mid to early end game, the chant scripts really are a pain. A lot of times I've heard players say, man, I have all the treatises or codexes that I have for this character, or I don't have enough chant scripts, or I have all the materials but I don't have the unit. Like, these are the struggles that intermediate player halfway or midway through the game or early end game are experiencing. And again, my advice to you is the same thing. Keep on grinding. Eventually your team will balance itself out. What I mean by that is, as you play through the story and you play through everything and you're starting to grind out all those achievements you haven't done, the beginning, some of the easier super bosses, and grinding out all the points for the rewards, all the other kind of side episodes or side quests you might have left behind as you rushed through some of the content, or even more importantly, remembering to go back to kill off some of those super bosses you weren't able to kill off in your first year of play. You'll eventually accumulate more and more stones, and you'll be able to summon more and more units, and therefore eventually expose yourself to getting units at 4.5 such that you can upgrade them to 5 stars. So keep on going. The chant scripts are usually a pain even at this point in the game. Now, surprisingly, as an endgame player myself, starting from day 1 of Global, my grind is very different from your experience as an early and mid or even early endgame player. And what I mean by that is that for me, the struggle is not so much the materials. The chant scripts, because I have all the reward lines, I run all my keys. I do buy all my red, green, and green keys weekly with my Superior's gems, just in case you're wondering. I always seem to have enough chant scripts, and I've kind of thought about this for a while, because I have had some of you comment to me, Will, man, like, I'm always having so few chant scripts, can't do anything. And for me as an endgame player, the chant scripts aren't the bottleneck. It really is the opuses, treatises, and codexes. And the reason for that is that as you keep on playing and playing, I actually don't prioritize upgrading any one unit unless it is absolutely necessary for a strategy. That is, like, say I have a strategy in mind, and I really think that this one unit would add, extra capabilities to my team. For example, as soon as I saw AS Miufa back in the day, I knew I would need her for my blunt team. And so I did prioritize trying to get her. What I mean by prioritizing is that you can't hope for the treatises to come. However, when you do see PCD clear or Sensationalist at the end, you can choose the one you want. And so I did prioritize units that I really, really needed to kind of cement my team. It still took a few months. And the thing is, one thing that most people don't realize is that as you're grinding one unit, that is, I am waiting for, say, T-Maiden treaties for AS Miufa, you are actually grinding all the units before that as well. Because remember, the game does not specify which treatises, codexes, and opuses it drops. It just kind of drops it all randomly, 0.1% chance or so. And so, as long as you have all your reward lines open, hopefully the good ones drop. But as you can see from this video, a ton of junk ones drop too, right? Like, there are so many ASs and ESs and Ultra units in the game by now. The chance of you getting exactly the one you want is actually really, really low. However, as the math goes, as you keep on running it, you will roughly get the materials you need within 3 to 6 months. In my experiences, it's actually more closer to the 1 to 3 month range. And the reason for that is that with altars, for example, you don't only need 3 opuses, and if you get even one Sensationalist or one perfect clear with your white gate key, you're essentially 1/3 of the way. Not only that, but on average, you're hoping to get 3 or 4 PCD or perfect run clears in 1 year, such as this. This is actually abnormally lucky. I think I got 2 in the last in this video, which is in the last 6 weeks. I realize that sometimes my account does seem a little bit luckier than average, and I actually have run the numbers, and surprisingly, it does seem like I have some streamer's luck or some dev account here. It's not like abnormally insane, but it does definitely feel a little bit luckier than normal. Not sure what the reason for that is. However, I'm not going to complain or question it. But that being said, on average, I would say 1 to 3 months is more than normal than something like 3 to 6 months, as long as you don't upgrade as soon as you have 5 chants. Like, if you have 5 chant scripts, you shouldn't be like, oh, let's see what I should upgrade next. Now, you might be doing that in early to mid game where, you only have like 5 or 6 5-stars, for example, and you really want to upgrade that Alma or Flam or AS Radius. Hey, by all means, you should upgrade the super meta units, super powerful units, and so on and so forth. What I meant by that is, how about the second tier of units? Like, oh, I finally have enough to upgrade AS Annabelle, for example. Now, some of you probably don't even know what AS Annabelle does because you've never used it. But for me, who's used her since, like, she's come out, I needed someone to do a water zone, and she was the one that I was doing. Then, of course, I used her for a while, and I kind of put a lot of use got a lot of use out of her. But, at this point, if you just started, like, in the last year, why do you need AS Annabelle? You have Aisha as a water zone center. You probably have maybe pulled some other water zone centers as well, and so on and so forth. And so that's what I mean, like, when you're grinding and upgrading, and that goes for everyone, regardless of what stage of the game you're in. Unless you really use the unit, or planning to use the unit, or you've heard mentioned or you've seen in other YouTube videos or even discussed in things like on the Discord or subreddit, and you've seen that this unit is something you really want to use, hey, definitely spend the materials you need in order to upgrade it. But what I'm saying is that if you don't just upgrade for the sake of upgrading, that this game is not really about that, right? Another thing to mention is that remember that this upgrade system, as I said, is ultra important. And I actually always felt that my friend and I, when we were discussing this game, the upgrade system is essentially our pity system. Now, I know that our gacha is very unforgiving. It doesn't have any sort of pity. And I realize that you can miss for tens of thousands of stones without getting the featured unit or even a 4.5 or 5-star. But remember, all banners are permanent. That is, you know, when the unit comes out as limited, it does come into the next banner, which is great. You don't have to worry about FOMO where, oh, like, you know, limited unit, never come back again. I've heard some other gachas do that, which is really, really ridiculous. This one, you know, as long as you wait a couple weeks or a couple of banners, the older units will always come back in. And so you always have a permanent chance of getting those, albeit at a lower rate, in the future. So if you're a little bit fortunate and you can get a spook or off banner pull, then those units will come back home to you. And so yeah, it's really, really good. But the thing is, because you do pull a lot of 4.5s as well as 5-star, and that is why we always 10 pull everyone. Do not pull singles. 10 pulls do increase your chance of 4.5 by a fair margin as well. By the time you get all those 4.5s, if you don't grind, you will never have the materials you need in order to side grade. And so if any of you have watched my reality of a free-to-play or something, you know, that is one of my videos that I really did put a lot of effort into. The reality is you have to grind to get the materials and be willing to grind it out and wait for delayed gratification in terms of upgrading your units. If you don't do that, you're going to go broke really, really quickly, and then you'll get really frustrated with the game. Not only that, but don't forget that most of the free units are extremely powerful, especially the more recent ones, Complex Dream, Tales of, and I'm sure these new Tales of units are going to be extremely powerful as well. Now, I understand if you're ultra new to the game, hey, it might be difficult for you to kind of finish some of those side stories, but they make it actually pretty approachable. Like, not only do you only have to have chapter 13 of the main story done, most of the time the fights are like level 30 or less, and so I would say that it's much easier for you to kind of approach it from that standpoint nowadays instead of you know, back when we started. So you know, don't be afraid of grinding it out further, maybe doing some more main story and then coming back to the side episodes as you see fit. Sometimes if the difficulty level is too high and you don't have the right gacha units, then you might not be able to get all those free units out there, but it is definitely doable, you know, nowadays. So that is really, really good. So regardless, I think the takeaway point is, like I said, for all the subscribers of mine and people who are watching this channel, you know, the game is going to continue to evolve. The game will continue putting out content, and unfortunately, if you are planning to play this game long term, you do have to put in the time and effort to grind. Now, I don't mean grinding hours a day. What I really mean is grinding your 4 red keys, grinding your 4 green keys, and kind of keeping up that way. Because that is actually, as much as everyone says not everything is permanent, you don't have to worry about FOMO and so forth, remember that the keys are a non-renewable resource. What I mean by that is, if you don't log in today, and say you don't feel like burning off your you know, 4 keys that you got today, and just like, I'll log in tomorrow and do that. Guess what? You actually lost 4 keys today. 4 reds and 4 greens. And if you want to just you know, do a little bit of funny math, considering that a red key is a 1 in 5 chance of getting 1 light or 1 shadow on a unit that will get you closer to those reward lines. Over even missing a week of logins for keys and saying I'm too lazy to burn that, you're talking about a 6-7 light differential on your red keys. You're talking about anywhere from 3 to 4 light via your green keys. Don't forget that you're probably losing out on a few treatises and potentially a chance of getting a codex and opus. And so if you multiply those losses over months, you'll be like, damn it, I could have had those units without summoning. So anyways, keep that in mind. I'll put a link to my reality of free-to-play video below. And as always, Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.